What is going on, ladies, gentlemen? Welcome to the weekend roundup here on Touchline Talk. Another action packed weekend, so much to get to. Like normal, we're going to start in the Premier League because we very well may have had our defining weekend of the season. When we get to the end in a couple weeks here and we look back on this, I would be stunned if we don't reflect on this weekend as kind of the turning point at at least two of the three races and possibly all three. The game that impacted those two races more than anything else, of course, Liverpool, Spurs, draw, which doesn't do a lot for either team. They both kind of needed to win this game. In the end, neither do. It was another rough first half from Liverpool. It's kind of been a theme lately. The midfield was not particularly impactful in the first half. That was something I brought up after second leg in the Champions League heading into the final. It needs to be better. Thiago had a couple passes here or there, but you just weren't seeing that much from the Liverpool midfield. The Spurs were very comfortable. And then you get to the breakthrough, and it's Spurs who go ahead. A patented Spurs counter-attacking goal with all of their attacking brilliance just flowing forward. It was a lovely team goal. Want to give special props to Harry Kane here because he has very much cemented himself as one of the best passers in the world and sort of this guy who can play both as a 9 and almost as a 10. He loves to drop deep and he's great at creating opportunities that way. This wasn't exactly that. But as he was bringing the ball forward, I thought he had missed the opportunity. He had Sessegnon and he just didn't give it to him, and I thought this is gonna go to waste. He held on to it for as long as he possibly could, but what that did was allow when he played that ball to Sessegnon, there was nobody anywhere near him because he was able to hold that entire third of the field clear by keeping it sort of on the edge of the box as he was attacking. It was a brilliant understanding of space and time that is one of the most underrated skills in this sport. And Harry Kane put it on full display. And then Sessegnon could have had a shot, but he sees Son, squares it to him, and all of a sudden Spurs are ahead. And it's game on, and they're thinking maybe we can hold on to this thing. Luis Diaz ultimately gets the deflection to equalize for Liverpool. Then you start thinking Anfield magic, here come Liverpool, but they never get the second. Spurs were terrific defensively all game. That back line was phenomenal. You sort of saw them taking turns making brilliant defensive plays. Christian Romero, Ben Davies had a sensational one. And the wing backs, who not your preferred options, but they were both really, really good as well. So you got to give Antonio Conte and Spurs credit. That was a remarkable performance. They end up only getting the point out of it, which now means they need to go win the North London Derby because they are 4 points back of Arsenal, who strike twice early against Leeds in a very bizarre, interesting game, and hold on for a 2-1 win. It opens with a brutal mistake from Meslier and net. Just takes a touch when he doesn't have time, and Eddie Nketiah is putting pressure on him and just pokes the ball into the net. Similar to what happened with Zach Steffen when Sadio Mane got that goal. So you're 1-0 down almost immediately, which throws the game plan out the window if you're Jesse Marsch. Then you give up the second, Nketiah scores again, and now you're really chasing the game. And then your captain decides to go in for a two-footed studs up challenge and gets himself sent off and suspended for the rest of the season. Jesse Marsch's response after the game, saying we can't just put this on one person, was correct. Luke Ayling, you gotta know better. And particularly for a team so depleted in defense right now, Liam Cooper's still not available. Stuart Dallas just had an awful injury. They need the experience, they need the leadership, and it was not there for Luke Ayling over the weekend. So he's also done for the season. They do get a goal. They almost end up getting a 2-2 draw out of this thing. Now, Arsenal also could have won 4-0. They had plenty of chances. They just couldn't put them in. Again, it's a testament to Jesse Marsch. This team doesn't quit. His teams never stop playing. But all of a sudden, Leeds are in real trouble. And, of course, Manchester City go do their thing. And so Liverpool is now very much in the taking a backseat in the title race. Spurs are very much taking a backseat to Arsenal in the race for top 4. Of course, neither of them are out of it. But they're going to need some real help at this point to get back into a spot where they're sort of neck and neck. And at the bottom of the table, Everton come out of as your huge winners of the weekend, with Leeds having that debacle of the first half against Arsenal, Burnley losing for the first time in a little while, and Everton get another win against Leicester. Mason Holgate, Leicester gives up their millionth set-piece goal of the season. They come away with the win, and so all of a sudden, they are a point clear with the game in hand. They turn this thing around really quickly, and now it's on. They've given themselves every opportunity to somehow save this and avoid relegation. Which also means if you don't do it, it's squarely on you, because this is completely within your control now. But they went from, if these results had flipped and Leeds had ended up finding a way to win, and Burnley had won again, and Everton had lost, that was probably it. But instead, they are now clearly the front runner, so to speak, of these three teams to stay safe. This is very much now about Burnley and Leeds and which one of them can accumulate more points down the stretch here. So credit to Frank Lampard. It was another good performance. They are finding a way. That roster has some talent. I still have my questions about Lampard, but he is getting something out of that team right now, and you got to give him credit for that. So I really think relegation will have another turn or two in there, just because there are three teams involved, and you can never really know what to expect from any three of them. Maybe Spurs win the North London Derby, and that gets interesting again. Maybe City slip up, but I really feel we're going to look back at this thing and go, that was the weekend we sort of learned what was happening, particularly at the top of the league. Over in Serie A, I just wanted to mention real quickly, both Inter and AC Milan go down and then come storming back to get their wins, so they are still in the exact same spot, neck and neck there. Inter keep up the pressure, Milan continue to answer. Your other higher profile game of the weekend, the NWSL Challenge Cup Final. The North Carolina Courage come out as deserving winners in a game that was overshadowed by some things that happened we're going to get to in a minute here. Get the 2-1 win. Caroline, who I mentioned after the semifinal, scores her first NWSL goal, wins game MVP. She is spectacular. One of the best attacking talents in that league. She's played, 6 games or whatever already. She is remarkable and just puts so much pressure on the defense at all times. If she's not scoring, she's creating chances, she's setting other people up, she's drawing penalties. She is fantastic, has good chemistry with Dabinia. It is North Carolina have found something in Caroline. Trinity Rodman sets up Ashley Hatch for the equalizer. It's just the spirit were never, very similar to the semifinal, just were never able to get into this game though, and just couldn't build and transition the way they want to, couldn't hold on to the ball, really get control of the game. For a team with so much attacking talent, that is a real concern. And for a team that just has so much talent, period. But they just can't seem to sort of get this thing going. It's going to be a work in progress, and it's going to be a huge part to determine whether they're going to be up at the top of this league come playoff time, because this is a couple games in a row where it just hasn't clicked, and they got through OL Reign, but they could not get through the Courage. I mentioned the other parts of this game, and this is really unfortunately what the story coming out of it is the umbrella of player safety and sort of broken into two sections here. When you choose not to use VAR, and I tweeted this after the game, what it does is it leaves your refs exposed. Because at its core, what VAR is supposed to do is to provide protection for your referees. If they make an awful mistake they want back, it's easy enough for them to just look at it and go, I got that wrong, so let's fix it, let's make it right. That's the whole point. NWSL does not have VAR. And yes, I understand there's some logistical challenges, there are financial challenges, but ultimately that is a choice that is made. There is a way to figure out how to do this. There is. It might be difficult, but there is a way if you want VAR to figure out how to get VAR in there. NWSL chooses not to have it, which results in things like the Spirit getting away with what appeared to be 3 clear-cut penalties in less than 90 minutes of playing time. You had the one at the end of the semifinal and 2 in this game. The second of which was a horrible tackle from Sam Staub on Caroline that ultimately resulted in a corner kick that resulted in the Courage's other goal. So some karmic justice there. But she just went through the back of Caroline and took her out. Caroline was between her and the ball. And Caroline ultimately came off with an injury because of it. It was nasty. You could tell how much pain she was experiencing because of that tackle. Nothing. You had that. You also had the cleats to the ribs of Abby Erceg by Ashley Hatch. Nothing. I saw Abby Erceg tweet that apparently the referee told her he saw the ball hit her ribs. Seen multiple replays of that. Does not look like that's what happened. Which goes into also, OL Reign's legit complaints about that handball at the end of the semifinal were also just patently dismissed by the referee. Not even willing to give that a consideration that they might have been right. You can only do that as a ref if you are correct. The consensus seems to be, and I certainly agree, the refs got all of those calls wrong. You don't have VAR to back it up. You're leaving your refs to be exposed. When they have poor games and they make mistakes, which will happen because they're human, this is the kind of stuff that ends up happening. You as a league just look really bad because in one of your high-profile moments, as you're touting this new partnership that's getting the winners, I believe it's $10,000 per player going to the Courage, and that's going to increase next year. We're here talking about VAR, and we're talking about what happened to Jordan Baggett. Thankfully, it seems like she's doing okay. It's one of those incredibly scary moments you never want to see because it's not really clear what happened. It was just clear something was horribly wrong. It wasn't like you saw the tackle and at least could, as painful and as sad and nasty as a tackle can be, you at least are able to sort of connect the dots as to how this happened. This one, nobody really knows. But there was the one shot before everybody had kind of fully figured out what happened, and you could see her face, and it certainly looked like she was completely unresponsive. And it took players on the field yelling at medical personnel to finally get her to be transported off the field. There was not a good response time at all. And the players ran over there to go get the cart, gurney, stretcher, whatever you want to call it, the transportation device. Had to actually go over and run it back over to her because they were getting upset at how long it was taking. This is one of the lessons we learned in the Christian Eriksen situation, is how valuable every second is in those kind of positions where you don't know what's happening. It's not just an injury that was suffered as part of the game. At least it certainly didn't look like that. This looked like a Christian Eriksen kind of thing where something got triggered And it wasn't, I mean, you don't know what the worst case scenario start going through your head immediately. So thankfully, it seems, and she was able to smile as she was leaving, and she was back responsive. So it seems as if she's going to be okay, and this ended up being scarier than it looked scarier than it hopefully sort of long term ends up being for Jordan Baggett. But that's what we're coming out of this game talking about. VAR, the lack of it, and the poor refereeing, and the inability to protect players. It was a tough weekend for the NWSL. Congratulations to the Courage. On a happier note, I keep going back to this point, but this is not the Courage team of old. This is not a team loaded with U.S. women's national team stars. Yes, there are some incredibly established international players. Dabinia, Denise O'Sullivan, Abby Ursig. But there are also rookies starting out there, as in draft picks, Caroline, some other young players. But all of a sudden, you can't. They've gone through enough teams, they've played enough games at this point, you cannot dispute what they are doing. You can't dismiss it as just kind of a nice little happy start. They are legit again. Are they the best team in the league? That I'm not completely convinced of yet. And you would have liked to see OL Reign get a shot at him in the final, because OL Reign deserved to win that semi, but they couldn't get the goal, went to penalties. Washington ended up advancing. So we'll see as the season progresses, but this is real. That was an awfully impressive performance from the Courage. Hopefully, the league steps up and we can find a way to do something to protect players and figure out this VAR situation, because I am by no means a VAR apologist. But your refereeing has to be really good to get away with not having it at this point. Mistakes are going to happen. This is not about perfection. But there were way too many of them this weekend, and too many of them in this game. Too many of them impacting the outcome of the Challenge Cup. To sort of just put off as human error. That's going to happen every once in a while. This was poor refereeing. Not trying to go after anybody individually, but as a collective entity as the league, it's got to be better. So congratulations, North Carolina. Really, really impressive. Now we are fully onto the NWSL regular season. Real quick before we get out of here, Major League Soccer wanted to touch on our two games we highlighted in our weekend look ahead. LAFC, Philadelphia Union, delivered again. Not quite as dramatic and entertaining as the 3-3 right before the pandemic shut down. But it was a 2-2 with decent amount of drama in it. This is now 5 times the Union have scored first in Banc of California Stadium in those 2 games, and 5 times LAFC equalized. Never went ahead, though. Yeah, this one 2-2, the other one ended 3-3. You come out of this game just really thinking these are the best 2 teams in the league. I will continue to say that. If LAFC could ever start a game well, they might run away with the Supporters' Shield. They have really, really struggled at the beginning of games, but they have always found a way to come back. And they have done that too many times for me to knock them for it. It is part of the strategy. Is they just keep coming after you. Steve Sarundolo is using his subs incredibly well. They have so many dangerous weapons off the bench that they can just throw different things at you. You're trying to deal with this set of players, and then all of a sudden you're going to sub off Carlos Vela, but here comes Ismail Tajuri-Shradi or Danny Musovsky or whoever it might be that day. They are so well balanced, and they have so many interchangeable pieces. They absolutely part of their strategy is to wear you down. They're so good in possession. They just keep coming at you, and eventually they get those breakthroughs. You would like to see them, get the first goal every once in a while and be able to keep a clean sheet every once in a while. But this to me is sustainable. Absolutely. Could it come back to bite them in the playoffs? Yes. That's a different conversation in my head. But they are really good. Both these teams, really good. You saw that in this game this weekend. And the LA Galaxy going to Austin and win thanks to Marky Delgado. Good goal from him early in the game. Austin had their opportunity to prove they belong with the big boys. Weren't able to get it done, of course. One game early in the season. We'll see how this plays out. But this is every piece of evidence is leading to the theme of they're doing a great job taking care of the teams they're supposed to. They're clearly good. They are really good in attack. They just might not be able to beat the top tier teams. And so they're going to kind of finish in that third or fourth or something like that. Sort of that mid-tier of the playoff teams in the West, just because they're not quite on that level as the LA teams. And maybe somebody else ends up, if Seattle can ever get this thing going, maybe they end up joining that group. Certainly potential-wise, they're there with the talent they have. But that is all for the weekend roundup. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back for our live show, 7 p.m. Wednesday night.